Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. This is a difficult subject and we have to be very careful because YouTube has certain rules about the wording that is acceptable. But we're going to talk about the termination of pregnancy. But you can't say the A word, they don't like it. But we will call it termination. Next week is the SNP's annual conference. And they're all going to gather there. I say all, however many turn up, are going to gather there and have lots of little conversations about all sorts of policy matters that they'd like to see coming up in the future. One of them is about termination. Now, this is a controversial subject. We know some people find it an acceptable thing. Some people find it an unacceptable at any time thing. There's various people who think it should generally not be done, but there are occasions when it can be done. Child's life, mother's life, the result of, R or incest, things like that. My personal view is legal but rare, I think. I think it should be something that should be allowed, but it shouldn't be the go-to straight away. But that's just me. You'll have your own views. You're entitled to them. I don't judge people for their views on this particular subject. However, I think that regardless of how liberal you may well be, and I use small l liberal, that you may be with regards to termination, I think that one of the resolutions that's going to be raised at the SNP conference next week, in fact, next Sunday, is that they're going to put the right to terminate and enshrine it in the future constitution of an independent Scotland. That bit, fine. I can find that acceptable, that you would have the right should you do so. Okay. That's not what's bothering me. It's the term limit. Because they're wanting to propose that the term limit be extended beyond, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's currently 28 weeks. They want to push it all the way up on demand because they want an absolute right. And so they want to put it up to the moment of birth. So basically, until a baby is engaged in the birth canal, it can be terminated. I find that horrifying, abhorrent. I find that to be Mengele kind of territory here. I get if there was something wrong, but to terminate a perfectly healthy baby at, say, just shy of 9 months, in my mind, that isn't a termination. And I'm quite accepting of termination, but I find that to be, I can't even express how awful it is in words. It's beyond horrifying. And the fact that these people, these SNP people, would even come up to this, would even knock on this particular door. I mean, this is the second tower, isn't it? If this doesn't sicken even a lot of very rabidly pro-SNP supporters, a lot of people, even within the SNP, who support the SNP, who support this, cannot support termination up till birth. That is absolutely appalling. Now, if this radical change were introduced, Scotland would have probably the most extreme termination regimes in the world. I mean, constitutions are typically designed to reflect the wants, needs, and requirements of the people. I get that. But who requires, wants, or needs this? It sickens me. It sickens me that enshrining what I would consider murder in law is a step backwards to medieval horror. I don't know how else to put this. Now, chances are it would never happen. I think it would scunner people so much. And it's not there. I don't think it's going to happen. You know, I mean, I'm fairly sure it isn't. But the very fact that people in the SNP are proposing it shows you what monsters they truly are. I mean, there's massive public opposition to the introduction of these buffer zones, for example. They're arresting people who stand there silently praying. How you can tell if someone is praying if they're silent, someone please explain to me. But I just stood outside in one of the buffer zones, head down and, you know, murmuring or susurration or whatever. You'd be arrested for it. That freedom of speech and that. I think it's wrong to intimidate. Yes, absolutely. But on the other hand, I just can't see how you can tell if someone's silently praying. What do you do that you're silently praying that is so highlighting? It's weird, isn't it? We do live beyond, through the looking glass now. But Gillian McKay, I think it was, brought in the act. I don't know what her view on this would be. I suspect very unpopular, but I suspect this is unpopular with a lot of SNP people. And I think that at this, it's their 90th, isn't it? It's their 90th conference. I think when they start getting up there and having this discussion, I think it will be a fevered fight. I think anyone who proposes this will find a lot of opposition. And I do hope so. There's some things, I mean, I hate the SNP with a passion, but even I shudder to think that this would pass. I think most people in the SNP would be far more reasonable. At least I'd like to think so. It's just the worst thing I've ever heard. I'll leave it there. I mean, literally, you tell me what you think. How can they possibly justify termination up to birth? We know it isn't going to happen because they're never going to get independence. But it's a very fact that they're thinking about it. Anyway, I'll stop. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry to have upset you with this one if I have. But let me know, as I say. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.